What a treat to be with the most handsome jiu-jitsu athlete in the world, Kit Dale.
You didn't have to say that. I'll pay you that. Thank you.
So, Kit, obviously you're so well known in the jiu-jitsu world, but for people that don't do jiu-jitsu, how would you kind of describe who you are and where you're at in life?
Oh man, I'm basically like Iron Man without the suit. I'm a philanthropist. I give to the needy and I take from the rich. Give to the needy. So yeah, I'm Kit Dale. I'm probably most well known for my jiu-jitsu. So I started jiu-jitsu back in 2008, and I had a very good run with jiu-jitsu. I was one of the fastest black belts in the world. And then I went on to competing, and I competed. I didn't have a long competition lifespan. It was more because I had a lot of other interests, but I did quite well in that period of time, and I used a lot of comedy to drive a lot of that success as well in terms of social media success. So I would say most people know me from jiu-jitsu, but I've also been, I feel like I've lived like 5 or 6 different lives where, I used to play inline hockey. Like, it's like ice hockey on fucking roller rink. So I used to play that, and I was trying out for the state with that, and I loved that. So I had my own little group there. And then I left that and I went into Australian rules football, and I represented the interleague, the senior interleague, the Victorian East representative side of the country football, won 3 premierships with that, best and fairest. So I had that little career, and then I went into jiu-jitsu, and then won 2 world championships in jiu-jitsu, Brazilian national championships, a whole lot of stuff in that. And then I moved from that into film. So I feel like I've kind of been like, I've always just been Kit, but I've been going through these little phases where I'll get obsessed with something and I'll do it for a short or long period of time, and then I'll move on to something else. And so I've been like that since I was a little kid. I mean, the first time I probably noticed that was when I was using nunchucks when I was 16 years old, and I think for 9 months straight, that's all I did. I ended up like I put my mattress against the wall just so I had more room in my bedroom, and I would sit there and just practicing Bruce Lee's nunchucks and stuff like that. And that was like probably my first real obsession, and I've kind of been a little bit manic ever since with either I'm all in on something or I want nothing to do with it, and that's been my life, and kind of through little phases. And now I'm into my I went to an acting phase, and now I'm into a movie making phase, which has been a lot of fun, but it comes with unbelievable challenges as well, probably far more than any of the other things that I've done.
Okay, the idea of the personality trait you have where you get obsessed with things, I feel like anyone that you look up to that's, elite in their field have that same personality trait. So that's definitely a gift that you have.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I feel like, as you know, to get really good at anything, you have to put unbelievable amount of time and thought into it. And no sane person is probably going to do that because, no content person is going to do that. You have to be driven by something else, something outside of you. And it may be some kind of trauma or whatever it is, but it's not for everybody. And unfortunately, because I think it's one of the most amazing things, and I really enjoy it, but I get why most people will never want to do that, because you really have to sacrifice a lot of things that you would otherwise really enjoy. But as you stated, you have to have some kind of damage to push yourself into those kind of, for so long in those areas where you don't believe in yourself and you don't know what's going to happen, if it's going to pay off, to just get there eventually. And that's why I really respect and appreciate people like yourself when I get to talk to them, because I want to figure out what made him, how did he get to where he is? And not just in a technical sense, it's more in a psychological sense, how did he push himself? How did he believe in himself? Did he believe in himself? Did he just keep going when he didn't? And, how long did he work? How much thought did he put into it? I'm never too concerned with the technical aspects of it, because that changes every moment. And, as you say, there's so much of it is timing at the right moment. Wrong moment can make or break different things, and it's always going to change. But definitely not for everybody. I would definitely say that.
Well, we were talking a bit before we started recording about both of us kind of venting in a sense that we both been a bit unlucky and recently with certain different things. And that's one thing that I've come to appreciate. When I was young, any success I had, I'd always put it down to my work ethic. I've always had a good work ethic. And looking back, I realized that any successful person will highlight the work ethic, but they also had incredible amounts of luck to be at the right time, right person, right place, right time. Because if you're born in rural Sudan in the middle of a war zone, and your parents aren't around, good luck, and the rebels come in, like, you just don't have the chances that you and I have. So I definitely, the older I get, the more I appreciate just the luck aspect. And then in terms of what you're saying, like trying to be Hollywood right now must be so difficult. But let's get back to Hollywood. I want to start with your jiu-jitsu kit, because when I met you, you were already this world class, very well known jiu-jitsu person. How much did you realize at the time, talking about people that are successful, how much do they know that they're eventually going to make it, versus they're just kind of doing their thing and success finds them? Did you realize at the time that you had to get out of your shell and put yourself out there and use your personality and use humor? Because I remember when we first met, that was one of the advices you gave to me. Was I was new in real estate and I was having real trouble marketing myself and putting myself out there. And you said, mate, you just got to put yourself out there. You just got to do it. Did you realize that early on, or was that just part of your natural evolution as a person?
No, it was accidental. I'm kind of like, I like to try and be myself. I don't really, I shouldn't say it like that. I don't like trying to be someone else to fill some kind of position, or whether socially or anything like that. I just like to be myself. It's just so exhausting, and I know a lot of people like this, where they're just constantly putting on this facade of who they are because they're worried about insulting or upsetting or or getting cancelled these days. So I just don't like that. I am who I am, and I've always been like that since, and not always, because this is probably why I am like this. When I was little, I was really shy, like unbelievably shy. I remember getting forced to play football, not forced, but like, getting encouraged, pushed in to play football. And I didn't really want to play because I was so worried that I would make mistakes and look bad. I remember I would be playing Australian rules football, and this would be in like under 10s or something. So I was like 9 years old. And I was very immature for my age as well. I looked like I was 6 years old when I was like 8 years old, and 8 years old when I was 10. And I remember being open and my dad yelling, "Kid, call for the ball." But I didn't want to even call for it. I didn't even want them to see me. I'm like, I'm open, but I'm trying to be invisible. I'm not moving. Like, so hopefully they just scan and don't see me open. Because my thought is, if they kick that ball to me and I stuff this up, oh my God, I'm in trouble. You know what I mean? That's the way I was. And, I never wanted to approach women. I was terrified of approaching women. I was the worst. I would be like, I'd like this girl, so I'd become their friend, and I would end up just being friend zoned, and I'd be the one brushing their hair in their bedroom while they're about to go hook up with the other guy in the shed that gives her no attention at all. That was me. I'd only kissed one girl up to the age of 18. There was so much that I was really like, I had real, not social anxiety. It was more, well, it could be an aspect of it, but I was just more really shy and terrified of everything. I didn't want to, physical altercations scared the crap out of me. That's why I ended up getting into martial arts eventually. But for me I had to really step out of my comfort zone for a lot of these things. And I really had to come from the bottom on that aspect of things to start believing in myself, and then to start actually taking steps to, achieve goals that I decided to set, which got unbelievably higher as I got older, and my belief in myself became stronger. The first thing that really helped with that was, there's two different things. One, I started playing football, and I just, through constantly pushing myself to do it, I started getting a little bit better and better and better. And I started feeling more and more comfortable. And then I started getting a little bit of praise because I started doing well. So I was enjoying it. I ended up getting out of football. And I got into, because this is a stage where the Mighty Ducks was quite big. I think D2 Mighty Ducks had just come out, the movie. And I was like, I loved hockey. I loved that movie. So I wanted to start playing hockey. So I got into that. And for some reason, having a helmet on made me feel like I was not judged as much and I wasn't myself as much. And it's kind of like, I always imagine this. If you're walking down the street, you've got like an armored suit and a helmet, no one knows who you are. You're more likely to be yourself and do whatever you want because you're not getting judged for anything you're doing. But the moment you know that people know who you are, then you know you're going to get judged for everything you're doing. So something when I was playing hockey and I had that helmet, I felt like it almost wasn't me, and I felt free to start taking risks and start doing stuff. And then I started doing really well, and I was trying out for the stateside not long after, and then my dad paid me money to quit and play football because it was just too much of him like driving around. And hockey's great, but it's expensive. You have to buy new gear every single year. We didn't have a lot of money growing up. We struggled a fair bit. So he paid me $20, which was big money for me to play football. So I went back and started playing football again. But something had definitely shifted, and I started realizing like, hey, actually I can be pretty good at something if I work at it. So I started working overtime. I remember I would go to the football oval an hour before training would start, and I would probably leave after training finished. I would stay another hour afterwards, and I would work on skills. And I started realizing, like, you know what, if I put the work in, this actually, and it's really hard to kind of see at the moment, I start getting better at stuff, so I started like improving in things. And this is where I started playing really good football. And I think it was something that I probably could have gone all the way to the top with that if I decided to stick to it. I started a little late, so it's harder because you kind of have to make it in AFL, you kind of have to start very young and be in certain areas, and then you get kind of groomed into that thing. And I started a little later, but the same thing with jiu-jitsu. I started later. I was 22 before I even touched jiu-jitsu. But at some point I was playing football, and I was like 21 years old, but I looked like I was 18. Physically, I was very good, but I didn't like physical altercations. And they kind of started realizing that we played in a really rough league where, a lot of stuff behind play would get away with it. So I remember some guy just, whack, hit me behind play. I go flying on the ground. And in my head, I was like, okay, if I stand up to this guy, he's going to beat the shit out of me. If I sit down right now, I'm weak, but I'm smart because I'm not getting the shit beaten out of me. So I went back and I was just sitting there thinking, I don't like this feeling. Someone else come and stood up for me. My little brother come in flying, and like, he's a psychopath, but they didn't have the same, like, he wasn't the same as me. He wasn't shy like me. He was the opposite. He would get in fights all the time. And even when I started martial arts and I was a really good martial artist, he was the one getting in all the fights and had no martial arts experience. So we're very different temperaments in that stage. But I realized that I want to start protecting myself. So I got into some MMA, and it was more, I was a huge Bruce Lee fan. My uncle was a massive Bruce Lee fan. And we grew up watching Bruce Lee movies, and he literally decked out his whole, it's so funny. Like, you see that plant behind you, right? He had fake plants all like through his lounge, and it was all like, he made a Santa Monica Boulevard sign. He had a Hollywood picture that was the backdrop of the wall. Like, he loved Hollywood. He loved movies. He loved Bruce Lee. So we would go train in the backyard and do all that kind of stuff, like nunchucks and things like that. And we would make lightsabers, and he was a really good cabinet maker. So we always make creative stuff, and I love that so much. And then when I got into martial arts, I went to a Jeet Kune Do school, which is like based off of Bruce Lee's philosophy, and we started training a lot there, and that's when I did my first session of jiu-jitsu. It was like 3 sessions after we did stand-up stuff, stick knife fighting, boxing, and then we did jiu-jitsu. I just couldn't believe how effective it was. I was looking at this little kid, I'm like, man, I'm going to bash this kid. It's going to be great. And then he just destroyed me. I was like, man, I need to learn this. But there's somewhere along the line, I started enjoying that more than football. And I thought, if I get really good, and this is where I started believing in myself. I'm like, well, if I get really good at jiu-jitsu, before that, I was more like, if I spend, I hated working. I worked so many shitty jobs, and I just couldn't stand working. And I never wanted to have to get up, for somebody else and work for someone else again. I just wasn't made for that. Like, I don't have that. I either want to do it because I love it, or I don't want to do it at all. And I'll go to unbelievable lengths to not have to get up with an alarm clock every single day and go to a job that I don't like. So I thought, if I get really good at jiu-jitsu, in 10 years, I can get a black belt. And then I could probably get enough students at a school to be able to make money through teaching a little, like just a small, in my head, it's like a real small school, and that would be better than, having to work. And then after, like a month or 2 or 3, I started getting good at jiu. I'm like, you know what? I want to set my goals a little higher. And I will add that I met this guy. I was seeing this girl at the time, and she introduced me to this dude. He was a very wealthy guy, and he was really into like the law of attraction and like specific coaching and stuff. So he put me into his little group that he had, which was called the Hunters of Excellence class, right? And he started talking about laws of attraction and all this kind of stuff. And that really helped me a lot, because I kind of like, he even said that, he goes like, Kit was the only guy that didn't do any of the work, but actually put the effort in, if that makes sense. Like, like everyone else was doing all the work, and he had all these like assignments to do. I just hated doing like that. It just bored me. So I wouldn't do it. But I absorbed everything he was teaching, and I really put it into practice afterwards. And then I kind of like, I set my goals much higher. I was like, okay, well, I think I can do a lot better than what I thought I could. And I was doing a lot of affirmations at the time. So I'm going to set my goal to, I want to get my black belt in 3 years, faster than anyone in the world. And after that, then I'm going to go into MMA, and I'm going to become a UFC champion. And it wasn't like until I started getting really good at jiu-jitsu, and I decided, I don't want to do MMA. I don't want to get punched in the head as a career. I'll just go into film after that. But that was kind of like the progression in that. And just every time like I did something, I got better. I set my goals a lot higher. So then I went from, becoming an actor to like, I don't want to just become an actor. I want to become one of the best actors in the world. And then I want to make movies. And we'll get to that. Obviously, you're going to ask me questions later on. But yeah, it definitely, for me, it took so much work to break out of my shell and to start believing in myself. But, ultimately, like I tell people this all the time that ask the same question. I'm like, don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for belief, because it may not ever come. Just take the actions that you would if you believed in yourself. So let's say I always say you have this goal, you want to be here. I'm like, okay, well, I don't care if you believe or not that you're going to get that. If you did believe in that, what would be the steps that you would take to get to that? And then I would say, then use discipline and take those steps. And then what will happen is a lot of the time you're going to start taking steps and start getting better at things, and you're going to start realizing, hey, you know what? Actually, I think I could get to that. There's a chance I could get to that. And then eventually you're like, I did get to that, So otherwise, if you're waiting for, I think, motivation, or you're waiting for belief, you might wait your whole life and never ever understand how potentially powerful you really are.
That's so true. But I love, you and I have that. We have so much in common, Kit, from our youth, because I was very shy, and I was always the quiet, introverted guy in my group of friends. And I always joke that if you'd ask any of the kids in my high school who was one of the least likely people to be a professional fighter, I would have definitely been close to the least likely, if not the least likely. So it's the same as you, where I just started doing traditional martial arts because that's all there was back then in my little suburb of London. And then eventually I got a bit more confidence, and it really hit me. It's so funny. Now he's turning 3, my son. I'm thinking about the things that I want to encourage. What sports should I want to let him do his own thing, but I want to expose him to a lot of different things to kind of see where his natural interests are. And I realized that, so I did it was a week before my 13th birthday when I first walked into this little local martial arts gym. And then when I was teaching English in Russia before my MBA, I was 22. So I've been training nearly 10 years. Not, twice a week, nothing crazy, but I at least got some pretty good skills. Actually, in college, it was about 4 times a week, so I'd kind of increased it. And I remember I was teaching English in Moscow, and I wanted to do some sparring. And I walked in this boxing gym, and I didn't know anything about it. So I started hitting the bag, and then we're doing some sparring drills. And I spoke a tiny bit of Russian I'd learned, and the coach spoke a tiny bit of English. But he pulled me aside. He's like, hey, you're pretty good. Get in the ring and spar with some guy. So I sparred with this guy who was so-so, and I kind of got the better of him. And he's like, oh, go and spar with this guy. And this guy comes in, and he looked like kind of a badass. And we did, I think we just did 2 rounds or maybe 3. And he beat the fuck out of me, Kit. And he started off kind of going nice. And later on, we were talking after, he took his we had headgear. He took his headgear off. And I guess I did like a short little hook in close. And instead of punching my fist, I'd caught him with my elbow on the side of his head. So he had this big welt on his head. And then he kind of got mad. I don't know if he thought I did it deliberately or what. So then we went at it. And then I found out he was like the middleweight, Russian champion, amateur champion. He'd had 200 fights or something. So it was such a cool experience just to, even at that stage of my life, to be in with someone so elite. And then later on that night, I went to this party because I was teaching English. So a bunch of the teachers were hanging out, and there was a girl I liked there, but I was, again, like you, kind of shy. And I walk in the room. I remember there was a bunch of Russian guys there. And I walked in, and I had kind of a bit of a black eye, and my nose was a bit swollen. And one of the guys was like, hey, you okay? What happened? And I was saying, I just got back from this gym. And he's like, what was it called? And I told him the name of it. And he's like, that's one of the best gyms in Moscow. You will go and get some of the best guys. And they all suddenly started treating me very differently. And then, of course, the girl comes up to me, and she's like, she sees them all, the way they're acting with me. She's like, what's with this guy? I'm going to talk to him because he's obviously something different. And so looking back, it's just one of many examples where everything in my life, Kit, that's good, I feel like is some way linked to the confidence through martial arts. And it's in as a man, when it comes to women, one lesson I want to teach Victor is when you get the respect of your peers, however you get that respect, that's what you want. Or the respect of women and the respect of everyone else will come. But initially, you need the respect of your peers. And there's just nothing better. Sports in general and martial arts specifically, I just think they're such good vehicles for personal development. So we kind of share that same background.
Yeah, it's so important. I think a lot of boys and men are, their main purpose is to find the most attractive female and reproduce with them. And it's like, if you realize how much easier it is by putting your energy into your purpose, and you get really good at something and respected for what you do, then these amazing women will come to you rather than you having to chase them all and do a lot of work. It was one of the things that kind of like, it's always been a primary driver for me. I have a high testosterone for sure. That's a lot of my, everything in my body is designed for that. So it's good for me to put that into a passion, because then you end up killing two birds with one stone. You do something you really enjoy, you get respect, you get good money for what you're doing and help. It opens up a lot of doors. Plus you become far more attractive to females.
For you, I don't know about you, but for me, I admire anyone that is incredibly passionate about almost anything. And I love that idea of just single-minded focus and discipline and passion. And even if it's something kind of almost esoteric, I admire that, because there's so many people that they don't really have that spark and they don't really have that inspiration. They just go through life almost just, day by day, but it doesn't really seem like they're going anywhere. So it's always cool. That's why it was so cool to be around you fairly recently, when you just seeing you throwing yourself in this new phase of your life, screenwriting, and just seeing the complete dedication and focus and passion. I find that so inspiring, just being around that kind of energy.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm the same. Like anytime, it's really like, it's like, it can be both, I like people that have done something and have defied the odds to do something. And the reason why I like them is because I feel like there is something that I can learn from them, and they hold a lot of value to me. And this isn't everybody, There's, I can get someone that was super rich because their family was very wealthy, and now they're rich. And like, that's cool, they're rich, but do they have any kind of value for me? Most likely not, because there's nothing that they had to sort of persevere through. And I think the reason, and one of the reasons why I really enjoy talks with you, is because I know where you've come from and where you are, where there's not a lot of people that do that on this planet alone, or most of them had unbelievable handouts to get to where they are. So it's the same thing as coaches. You can be a really good athlete, but if you cannot articulate what made you good in a way that I can absorb it and help me, then what kind of value do you offer, apart from being some kind of pawn in the Colosseum for me to enjoy watching? And there's a lot of coaches that are like that. They get really good at something. They don't know why they're really good at it. They want to make money, so they coach, but they just miss the mark on what real learning is and how to get good. And they end up diluting their value because they're trying to sell things that they really don't understand. And that's why I like you, because every time I talk to you about something, I'm getting something from someone that's had to do it themselves. There's a lot of people that are academics. There's a lot of people that understand things and they read a lot of books and they can tell you what they've read in books, but they hold far less value to the person that actually did it themselves. And I've always tried to be the person that does themselves. And it's not, I wouldn't say I've always tried to. I've always been that person, but it's not because I'm trying to add further value to other people. I wasn't that aware. It's just that I don't have the temperament to sit there and read and watch a lot of things, so I prefer to just do it. And I'm ADHD, so I would much rather immerse myself in something and hit the ground running, make the mistakes as I go and then learn the lessons from my mistakes, than be told exactly what to do and then try and repeat what they do. And that's why I struggled in school, especially Australian school, because I failed almost everything because of the way it was set up. It was set up to like, okay, you want to be an artist? Like, I love art. All right, so we're going to paint this picture today and you're going to paint exactly by numbers. This is what you're going to do. Then this. It's like, I find that so boring. So I failed art. I failed drama, I failed phys ed, and they were the three things that I was arguably best at. Like, I was very good at drawing, I was very good at art, anything creative. I have a talent for, or at least I've honed in on that. And same thing with drama. and same thing with phys ed, but I failed those classes. The ones I did pass, the stuff I had no interest in, with the mathematics and physics. Actually, I don't mind physics, but just the way it was taught was just not fun for me at school. And I really struggled to pay attention. It has to be something that really engages me for me to pay attention. And otherwise I'm sitting there and I'm listening, but my brain is like trying to figure out other things that I've got going on.
Well, Kit, that's so interesting you said that, because I just recorded a podcast a couple of days ago that will be out the week before this one. And it was by Marty Strong. He's an ex-SEAL and SEAL trainer. And then he went on to success in business. And now he's publishing his 12th book. And one of his core beliefs is school just crushes the creative spirit. And what you just said is exactly the perfect example of that. The three things that you've excelled at, you didn't do well in school because they were trying to teach you how to do something instead of just letting your creative expression flow. So I think that's these are all the things I'm thinking about now as a new parent. It's like, how do I not crush my son's spirit? Because he's so creative. Like he's got these things. Yesterday he was in the bath kit. He's got these little magnets he plays with, and there's a bunch of pieces that make up a road. And then he has a bunch of cars. And, an adult would put the road together like a real road. His road is going zigzag into the sky and his cars all over the place. And I started to kind of show him. And then I had that exact thought. I was like, you know what? He's a kid. Like, let him be creative. Let him live in his fantasy. I want his bubble of this fantasy world to last as long as it can. Because I know that the whole system and society and school and everything is set up to make us conform to norms. And there's that great quote. He said, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." And I love that. I'm like, that's so true. It's like, sorry, I just have to share that because it sums up exactly what I'm saying.
No, I love that. There's a couple of things that just popped in my mind. Was like, one, when it comes to coaching, what I'm always trying to tell people these days, and it's really hard, is like, the better you are as a coach, the less you're going to teach them. The better you are as a coach, the more you're going to create scenarios that allow them to figure things out themselves. So and it's really hard because as a coach, you want to be respected. Your ego wants to be respected. So a lot of time you want to show how much information you know. Like I see these new people and it's kind of something like, and no matter what you're in, you want to kind of explain what you know and then listen and they'll explain what they know. And it's almost like a battle of knowledge in a sense. And the best thing you can do as a coach is just really try and hold that in and go, okay, yeah, I know the answer, but I'm not going to tell you. And I get this a lot of time where like people ask me, Kip, what do you do here? I'm like, I'm not telling you, mate. You got to figure that out. And then they start to love it because they're starting to realize, oh, yeah, that's true. I do have to figure that out. And it's so much better when someone discovers something, it's so much more powerful than when you teach them something. Like if you discovered a new submission in jiu-jitsu through all of your practice and all your trial and error, and you come up with this new submission, that's going to be far more valuable than if I teach you a new submission that you just copy. Because you're going to have all the information of how you come up with that submission, why you come up with that submission, when to do it, when not to do it, when it does work, when it doesn't work. There's so much information you've gathered to have that. So by learning that way is far more, beneficial. And as you said with Victor, the word genius describes someone's ability to creatively problem solve. And every single year through high school, people become less and less and less and less, or through the general education system, of a genius. Because are they literally learning how to create things? Are they told here's some things, now create something? No, they're not. They're told exactly what to do and how to repeat it and just keep repeating that process. So it kind of kills a lot of the creativity. And I think a big reason why I'm going to do very well as a writer, and I already have, is because I'm very creative. And I think a lot of that is because I never paid attention in school. And I didn't let school ruin me as much as what it ruined a lot of other people. And I'm not saying all of school is bad. There's some really good things from schooling and education as well. But I feel like the format in which you learn is mostly not really transferable, and it's actually more detrimental than anything. There's a lot of things in life that you really need to learn that you don't get to learn at most general school. This is not every school because I grew up in Australia, so my experience is with the Australian education system and the way it's set up. So it may be different for a lot of other people, but you might have schools that allow you to be unbelievably creative, but mine wasn't. Mine was do it this way, and if you don't do it this way, you're not right. Here's a mathematical equation, and work it out the exact same way I worked it out. Where I like to work things out in my head, and I like to just sit there. If you give me an equation, I'm going to work it out in my head, and it's probably not the most logically sound way, but I love doing that because it's a fun little game for me to figure out. And I like to see how close, like, I love when people say, hey, you know what's 25 times 30? I'm like sitting there, hold on, don't tell me. And I'm like, and I come up with I'm like, I guess I'm not even thinking about this equation. I go 225. And they're like 226. Damn it. You know what I mean? But I love trying to figure it out myself, not using, not working it out, not doing that, using my brain, because the more you use your brain, the more you try and solve problems, the more you try and create, the stronger your brain's going to get. It's like anything. You want to get strong muscles. What do? You go to the gym and you put them under a certain amount of pressure. Not too much that you tear your muscles, not too little that you're unaffected, but just enough. And the same thing with you want to get smarter. You want to become a better problem solver. You want whatever it is, start solving problems. Start becoming, start trying to create things. And the more you do that, the better you're going to get at doing that. And so being in my field now where I want to, my goals are to become one of the best filmmakers. And it's hard because the industry itself has changed a lot and it's continuously changing. So it's really hard to see where it's going to go. But ultimately, like, all I'm trying to do is create. And I feel like I've written more in the last 2 years than what most writers do in 20 years because I haven't stopped myself thinking, is this story ever going to get made? Is this perfect? There's no thought of that. I just keep writing. I've got a mug here from, I think it's Ernest Hemingway, that says the first draft of anything is shit. And I always try to remind myself and other people, like, just write it. Just write. You want to get really good at snowboarding. Don't try and do this one jump. Just keep snowboarding every fucking day. Go over and over and over. Make heaps of mistakes. Fall off that damn thing as much as you can. Don't make the problem so hard that you cannot attain it or you're going to get hurt trying to do it. And don't make it so little that you're unaffected, but just try, keep raising those problems and make them harder and harder and harder. And that's one of the things that I feel like has helped me so much with my writing. And luckily, I've got an unbelievable mentor in Sheldon Turner, who's an Oscar-nominated writer, a Golden Globe winner. He wrote The Longest Yard, X-Men First Class, Ambulance, Up in the Air, and a bunch of new stuff. And he's one of the best writers in the world. And when we first got together, there was one thing that I really explained to him was, I'm going to do this my way. And what I mean is I want to write things my way and I just want you to correct me. And now our relationship is great because he doesn't try and overcoach me. He doesn't try and helicopter parent me. He'll always say, he's like, try it, go for it, go as far as you want. And I'll read it and I'll pull you back if I need to. And it works really well because what happens is it allows me the opportunity to learn through trial and error and then have him as my feedback, him as my instant feedback, if that makes sense. So whether my trial and error, whether I'm on the right page. So, I just sent him a first act of a script that I'm writing and, his feedback is, okay, a lot of lazy writing here, a lot of continuity issues, but ultimately we're on the right path. Okay. Which is great. That's what I really need to know. Am I on the right path? Because if I'm not, then I need to come back and structurally change everything and rework it again and stuff like that. So as long as I know that, I can come back and I can start fixing that kind of stuff. And he knows that as well. I'm not going to write the first draft or the first act as perfect as I can, because most likely I'm going to throw away almost every single word in that draft is going to change. Almost every single one. Very rarely, especially if you're trying to make it as good as you can, you got to come in, you got to change it. And that script, that first draft will end up being something entirely different, but something far more amazing. And a lot of the time I'm writing and I cannot see that. I cannot see how this is ever going to get made. And I cannot see how this is an interesting story. And I'm not interested in it at all, but I just keep forcing myself to write it because I know that I'm going to find something, I'm going to keep writing, and every word inspires a new word, every sentence, a new sentence. And eventually I'll find something where I'm like, this made all that work worthwhile. Plus, even if I throw the whole script away, it's still practice. Yeah. It's like, we got to look at that as the same thing as training in jiu-jitsu. Like, even if you're not competing, all that practice is important. And that practice is going to get you better for when you do compete. And the hardest similarity between filmmaking and sport is more simple in a sense. If you want to do really well, you find somewhere to train. Okay. If you're lucky enough to find somewhere to train, you can afford it. And then you put yourself into tournaments. Okay. And most likely all you have to do is pay a little bit of money and you can go and compete. The difference in filmmaking is you can train all you want, okay, which is writing all the scripts you want, doing all the acting classes you want, but you don't get the choice of whether you get to compete or not. And you have to get very lucky. And a lot of people, a lot of really good actors now were just in the right place at the right time, got lucky, and then kept getting lucky. And, you know, once you get lucky once, it's a lot easier. You know, people see you're in this movie. Okay, we'll put you in this movie because you offer value. And through doing that, you're going to get better and better as an actor as well. You're going to get far better in movies than what you will in acting classes. It's just, you can't even compare. It's like you're going to get so much better in competition than what you are in training, because it just does so many more things for you. So that's the hardest thing with filmmaking. And that's where I'm at. It's like, I know that my scripts are very good and I've got good people reading them, but I need to get the right people reading them now. And the right people are the ones that have the power. They're the ones that have the ability to say, okay, I like this. I'm going to get it $30 million and get this made. And they're very hard to get in contact with because, for good reason, they are very powerful. So they're very sought after. And when they see a script coming and they're like, who's this script from? And you got to think they're going to take 2 to 3 hours to read this script minimum. And they're like, who's this script coming from? We don't know, some new guy, like, some jiu-jitsu champion. Okay, cool. Fuck off. I don't want to read it. I don't have time. Send it to somebody else. Yeah, and that's what it is. And it's like you have to get very lucky to either meet someone and somehow exchange in value, you know, somehow have an exchange in value where, let's say I'm like, oh, you're a big producer, okay? And you love jiu-jitsu. I'll teach you some jiu-jitsu. And then we get to know each other. And I'm like, you know, actually, I write as well. He's like, oh, yeah, I'll help you out. Send me a script, you know? And then suddenly, like, that's how most of the people I've spoken to, it's been some kind of circumstance like that. I think, and I'm going to bastardize this a little bit, but even Sheldon told me it was something like someone in his family had donated an organ to somebody, and that somebody had power and offered to read Sheldon's script because of that, and then got that first script made because of that. You know, and then so it's so hard. That's the hardest thing about filmmaking, is that you don't know how to. You're sitting there blindfolded, you're practicing it, but you don't know where that bloody door is. But once you get through that door, everything becomes much easier. So for me, and I was explaining this to you before when we were off, it's like, I all I can do is focus on myself and get better at what I can control. And eventually it's going to happen, whether through luck or whether I get so damn good that people cannot ignore me, and then I'll break in that way. And that's the only reason I'm in this position, is because I wanted to originally just be an actor, and I loved acting. I never thought about doing filmmaking or writing because I thought I'm never going to enjoy writing, and it seems really difficult to do. And I was getting good auditions. And then after COVID, there was a shift in political climate in film. And it was less about, you know, it was kind of pushing work away from middle-aged white men to people who are minorities and stuff. And this is in a lot of different fields. So my auditions went from, you know, let's say 3 a month to maybe 2 a year. And they're shit auditions. They're just, why am I auditioning for this? I never want to do this. So I thought, look, if I'm going to make it, I'm going to have to take control of this myself. Unless there's a complete political shift back into the way it was or should be, which are two different things. I'm not going to make it. I might get unbelievably lucky, but it's highly unlikely. So I felt like I was Thanos in the Marvel universe, where he's like puts his hand in the Infinity Gauntlet. He's like, I'll do it myself. And I just thought, well, if I'm going to make it, I'm going to have to write my own movies, and I'm going to have to cast myself. And that's the reason why I got into writing. But then I actually, at some point, I just thought, I enjoy this, and I'm getting good feedback from these scripts. So like, I'm just going to keep working on this. And then my goals got, like, everything got bigger and bigger and bigger, instead of just, originally thinking I might be able to write something real small and cast myself. I'm going to write the biggest movies there is, and I'm going to write the best movies there are. And I'm going to act them. Not only am I going to act, eventually I'm going to direct, and I'm going to produce them as well. So I'm going to run. I'm just a complete movie maker, and I can do everything. And that's what I like. It's fun because I'm able to create. When you're acting, you're doing a little bit of creativity, but you're also working off of a skeleton, you've got the road set up and you can kind of drive over the road, but you're not allowed to go off the road. When you're writing, you can write that whole scenery. You can write the road, the rocks, you can do whatever you want. You have that creative control. Obviously, when it comes to money, there's going to be a little bit of, you're going to lose a lot of creative control when people come in and say, okay, I want to give you $30 million to do this, but I don't want you to talk about this and I don't want this in here. And they're going to try and change it. That you have to deal with that. But ultimately, that's better than not having anything made at all.
That story about Sheldon, the luck involved, it just reminded me of my whole life. All the good stuff of my career started with this opportunity at this trading company. And I was actually planning to go to Australia. So I did my undergraduate degree, did an MBA, and I was just tired. I've been working really hard. I'm like, I want to have a year before I start my career and just enjoy life. I want to find a nice beach in Australia and just chase girls and get some sun. And that was my mindset. I was like, I know I'm going to be a really hard worker when I start my career. So why not just delay it a year? What's the rush? So I just graduated and I was going to go to Thailand and I was going to train for a few months because I love Thai boxing. So I went to train in Thailand. And my uncle, who I'm very close to, he calls me up and he's like, Lawrence, I know you're about to go to Thailand. He's like, I was at this dinner party and I live in the suburbs of London. He lived in the central London. He was like very connected, very successful photographer. I knew a lot of wealthy people. He's like, I was at this party and I was telling them about my nephew. He's just graduating. He's really smart. And the guy owns a trading company. And he said, you should talk to him because they're looking for people like you. And I thought, well, I'm not ready to start my career yet, but I'll just go in and maybe I could work for a few months. And then when I go to Australia, I'll have more money. So I go into this interview and he's like, I'm real busy. Go and talk to some of the other traders. And I thought I was just going in for a chat. And it ended up being a whole day of, 10 different interviews. And I see all these young kids making, these guys in their 26, 27, making, $500,000, 700,000 a year, just crazy amounts of money. Because trading back then was just free money. And then the last interview was with the owner of the company, and it was an American company, but they had an office. That's why they eventually sent me to the US. But the owner was this American guy, real nice guy, Dave. And he starts talking to me, and he's like, "Oh, you do martial arts?" And he's like, "My wife just started cardio kickboxing." He's like, "I love martial arts," and he's just like, "Tell me about it." And we spoke about martial arts for 30 minutes, and then he's like, "Well, when do you want to start?" And then that eventually sent me to America. It changed the whole trajectory of my life. But that was just good luck, because who knows if my uncle hadn't had that conversation and I hadn't gone. Yeah, obviously you have to, if I'd gone for the interview and been an idiot, I wouldn't have got the opportunity. So you have to have the expertise. But just like what you're saying, the role of luck in everything is just so high. But I love you. It's a testament to your mindset that you're saying, well, I want to create the whole thing. I'll write the script. I'll be able to pick and choose. I'll get my role. You're thinking bigger than just going to crappy auditions, like you said, which I think is so important. Like if you're just being of that same mindset where I'm just going to go to these crappy auditions because no one wants a white male these days, that's not going to, that's going to be a much slower path to where you're going to get to eventually.
Yeah. I think, as you said, so much of it is luck, but the better you get at something, the more control you take over something, the more you're going to push that luck in your favor. And you're going to create more situations where you could possibly get lucky. And I think that's the best way to do it, is just get so damn good. And then when you do get lucky, you're not a flash in the pan. We see a lot of people that are underskilled to get lucky, but what happens is, like, you realize really quickly that they were just lucky and they probably didn't deserve what that is, and they're just not at the level that they should be at. At that. And they fizzle out really quickly because they can't handle that. At least the longer it takes for me to get in, the better I'm going to be by the time I do get in. And when I do, I'm going to have far more stuff. Instead of, if someone contacted me a year ago, like, what have you got? I'm like, I've got one pilot for a series. Okay, we like your writing, but have you got anything else? Like, no. I'm like, okay, thank you. But now if they ask me, I got actually 2 more scripts ready to go. And actually I'm working on a 3rd right now, so then you suddenly got different flavors. And every single time I write one, it's better than the last one. And every time I finish one, I feel like this is as good as I can get it. And I work on another one. And I can't imagine it's going to be better, but it is, because there's so much I learn in between those, and there's so much more information I've gathered, and then I get another one. So the longer I can be in this position, and I'm very lucky to be in this position because of Jiu-Jitsu allowed that. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to be in here. Financially, I'd have to work. Where Jiu-Jitsu, I barely have to do anything and I can make decent money doing that. So it allows me to work, all day on the things that I really need to learn. And as long as I keep doing that, then eventually I'm going to get to a point, and it could be 10 scripts down the line. But if it is that long down the line, my scripts are going to be phenomenally better than what they are now. Exactly. And you can just you can't imagine how good you could actually be until you get there a lot of the time. You can know, like, I can know that I'm going to get better, but I can't really imagine it. And then once I get there, I'm like, holy shit. And it's usually by looking back that you realize, like, oh, I wrote that. I thought that was great. Oh, don't read that. Don't look at me competing at blue belt. I thought I was really good back then. I thought I was amazing. I walked around with a puffed chest and that. But if I look back now, I'm just like, oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, I get those Facebook reminders like 7 years ago, one of my early real estate posts on some investment property. I look at it and I'm cringing, it's so bad. And, but it's good because if we didn't think that, if we thought we were great at something we were doing years ago, that means we haven't grown. So I actually love listening to the first podcast I did where I'm stumbling over my words, and it shows growth, So I like that. I relish in the cringiness.
Yeah, 100%, dude. If I listen to some stuff that I had around 5, 6, 7 years ago, and just my voice is completely different. Just the way I sound is completely different. A little bit of that is getting elbowed in the throat by Paul Sean when we were wrestling one time. So that changed my vocabulary, not my vocabulary, but it changed my voice a little bit. But I'm so much more clear than what I was. And I have a much larger vernacular than what I did. And especially writing as well. When I first started writing, like I never read scripts, so I barely ever read a book. And then I start reading and I'm like, holy shit, I don't know any of these words. And a lot of the funny thing is in conversation, I'll hear a word that I don't understand, but I will subconsciously imagine it's something that it's not. I'll think, oh, this is what they're talking about. So then I interpret the message completely wrong because I'm not asking people like, okay, what does that mean? Now I do. Like if you say words to me I don't understand, I have no shame in like, hey, what was that? What does that mean? Just so I know. And half the time it's words that I thought I did know, but mean completely, something completely different. So writing has really helped me with the articulation, and listening to podcasts was also good as well. When I first started listening to, I used to listen to Jordan Peterson years ago, and it helped me a lot because I would just start like talking a little bit more clear because he's very articulate. And if I listen to my dad, when I used to hate listening to my dad when he would do speeches, because this is what he'd be like, and what we're going to do is and every single space he would fill with an or an and it sounds so bad, and it's something that when I was studying, speech, when I was doing speech therapy and stuff, it's one thing that you've got to try and become comfortable with is silence. Leading someone on and then delivering the message instead of leading someone on and then delivering the message. It sounds so much worse, so much less confident, and it really distorts what people are listening to. So the point being, when I listen to myself back then, I'm just like, oh my God, I sounded bad. But I know that I'm going to listen to myself in 10 years and I'm going to say the same thing. I'm going to go, I'm going to listen to this podcast. I'm going to specifically come back to this podcast and listen to both of us and go, geez, we're different, don't we? And hopefully it's because we're better.
Exactly. That's so funny. You just reminded me of a story. When I was doing my undergraduate degree, it was in history. I have to write these essays, and there'd always be there'd be 4 or 5 words that I'd always use to put in the essays. Like one of them was salubrious, which means like good, health promoting. And then when I was single, I would text girls.
What is it called?
It's called salubrious. So I would be texting girls, and I'd say, I'd love to take you. When I first texted Jen, actually, I said, I'd love to take you on a romantic and salubrious date. And then she said, so many of these people would be like, man, every time you text me, I have to look up a word or two. Like it was so funny. So Jen said one of the reasons she was attracted to me was because I had a nice vocabulary, which I thought was hilarious. But that was kind of, part of the reason is because I knew half the words I'm using. I'm like, they probably don't know what this is.
That is, yeah, you got to imagine how many people that you can talk to that will literally just not feel comfortable asking you what that means and just either lose the whole conversation, or sit there and use it in a different context. It's something that I really appreciate now is, someone with a PhD in linguistics or something like that, or is it a polyglot that can speak multiple languages? I find that unbelievably fascinating. I don't, and I speak part of one language, let alone someone that speaks multiple languages. I can't imagine how hard that is. And sometimes I've even thought about, I should learn a different language, but the amount of time and effort it would take me to learn a different language with technology right now, it's not even going to be worth it. There's going to be sunglasses that you're going to speak in different languages, going to come up with subtitles in English or replay it in English. So it's probably not going to be worth it, even though it's still a great skill. I don't think it's a skill necessary in the incoming future, the way things are going right now. But at least knowing your own language would be like phenomenal. If I was to look at the words I knew, and I think if everyone did this, you'd be surprised at how much you don't know, or how many words out there that you've never even heard of. And like my first couple scripts, I spent most of the time writing, Googling synonyms. What's a synonym for walk? What's a synonym for this? I don't even know if I'm even saying that right. It sounds like I'm saying cinnamon. Synonym.
You're right, just to expand your own vocabulary, because that's what they said. I think they say the average person uses something like 4,000 words. And one of the reasons Winston Churchill gave these amazing speeches was I think he was using something like 12,000, and then Shakespeare used something like 20,000. So they had a much more vast vocabulary to explain things, to inspire, to give these rousing speeches or incredible works of fiction. It's because of their vocabulary. So.
They connected, I remember kids with anger issues to having a low vocabulary, a small vocabulary years ago. Because when you think about what does the vocabulary do? I can't even say it. What does the vocabulary do? It allows you to express yourself honestly. Mm. And the bigger your vocabulary, the better you're going to be able to express what you're really feeling. And if you have a smaller amount of words, then it's really hard to accurately articulate what you're feeling, and that's what we're always constantly doing. We're trying to express how we're feeling, or ask someone something, or talk and teach. And the smaller your vocabulary, oh my God, I'm stopping up that word so much. The smaller your vocabulary, the harder it is for you to really articulate yourself, and the harder it is for people to understand you. And so I came from very small vocabulary. My parents, my mum's family is full Italian. They fled the war. So grandma and grandpa barely spoke any English at all. And we didn't come from very wealthy backgrounds or very educated backgrounds. My dad's family was quite rough, and same thing, didn't have great English at all. I think to this day, when my dad writes, he writes in all uppercase lettering. That's just the way, he writes. Even my first script I wrote was all uppercase lettering because I didn't know what was supposed to be upper and lowercase. I didn't even have a fucking single comma in my first script. Every period was an exclamation mark. I didn't even know what parentheses is and all that kind of stuff. So I had to start from complete bottom, and my spelling and my grammar was unbelievably atrocious. Like, I'll send you, just for fun, one page of my first script and you'll laugh your ass off. It's the most cheesy, cringe thing in the world. But that definitely didn't help me. And then not paying attention at school, failing English and all that kind of stuff, and not developing any kind of love for language until I got into acting years later and now writing. But now I find it so much more fascinating, and it's just so much better because even though I still feel like I honestly feel like I'm at 60% of where I need to be, it's far better than what I was at 40%. Every time I can find new words to really articulate something, because every word is slightly different in meaning. Otherwise, there shouldn't be two of the same words. And, the difference between walking and plodding and dragging yourself, it paints a different picture. So you got to imagine how many different words you can use that really paint an accurate depiction of what you're trying to say. And as a writer, you have to get good at that. Otherwise, your stories are very vague and boring, and specificity is so important when it comes to writing, because that's what's going to separate you from almost everybody else, is how specific you are with what you're saying. And that's a really hard thing to do, especially when you have a very small vocabulary, let alone everything else in life of just explaining how you're feeling. So they link that, anger issues in kids with having a small vocabulary a lot of the time, because you just can't express the way you feel. I can't tell you exactly how I feel because I don't have the words to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense, because that's one of the reasons they say kids have the terrible twos, where they have these tantrums. And I see it with Victor. It's like he wants to say something, but he doesn't have the words to express it. So it comes out as a tantrum. So that actually makes a lot of sense for when you're older and you've got anger issues.
Yeah. I can imagine everyone, like I'm sure everyone that's learning here could get better at English. Yeah. Or better at their language that would benefit them so much. And it's not that much work to do it. It could be, go read J.R. Tolkien's The Silmarillion, and you'll sit there, Google 12 words every single page. He's using words in Old English that we don't even use, hearkening and stuff like that. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? It's probably not, as applicable, but like try and find someone that uses words that challenges you to constantly, every time I learn a new word, like you were saying with that, what was it called? Salubrious. I'm going to try and remember that, but like every time I learn a new word, I remember years ago, I learned totalitarian because I was listening to Jordan Peterson and I was like, that sounds like a cool fucking word. And I started using that I describe anything with totalitarian. These drinks are just, totalitarian, whatever it is. But I'll try and get it in my head. And I've got a few friends that I know that they use the same bloody word and they've done it for years, like just never moved on. They have their one or two like words that they think makes them sound smart and they use it in every single sentence. I don't know if you watched The Simpsons when you grew up, but they were going to Homer and Bart and the family were going to another family and Homer's like, we need to sound smart. So we're all going to have a special word, to sound smart. And Bart comes and he presses the doorbell and they open and Bart's was doorbell. That was his one. Okay. And Homer's was electric. And Bart's is nice doorbell. Was that electric? And then Homer grabs him and goes, and like chokes him because he took his.
Oh, God. That's awesome.
I feel like they do have that. Yeah.
Ken, I want to go back to something you said earlier. You said about your goal. You said, I had the goal of getting my jiu-jitsu black belt in 3 years. For people that are listening or watching that don't know about jiu-jitsu, it took me about 15 years to get my black belt. So that's unbelievably short. And I think the average is 10 if you train consistently without breaks or something like that. So for you, and you did it, I think you did it in 3.5 or 4, which is just absolutely incredible. But obviously, you might deny this a little bit, but you do have some very good physical attributes, like athletic attributes, and you came from sports and everything. I've seen you walk on your hands and things like that. So I know you're a great athlete. But what was it? Do you think
you're painting a very different picture of walking on my? I was doing a handstand walk, and I don't do it anymore. Just no.
But yeah, I mean, do you think one of the reasons you got so good so quickly is because you had the approach that you're teaching now with this task-based games and the approach to learning? Did you figure that out very early on?
Well, it was only by chance. Just like the same thing. I have ADHD. I don't want to sit there listening to things. I want to do things and I want to figure things out myself. But one thing that really kind of separated me from most people is I'm a perfectionist, but not in the sense that limits a lot of people. Most people are perfectionists. They don't start anything unless it's going to be perfect and they don't want to look bad at anything. And it's not in that sense. But what I'm trying to do is I'm always trying to perfect whatever it is I'm doing. Even if what I'm doing is successful, I have my standards of perfection are far greater. So like my goal in jiu-jitsu is to be able to do whatever I want to somebody without even using any energy. I'm never going to get there, but that's the goal that I'll constantly try and achieve. So it's not so much about beating everybody. It's like, how can I beat this guy without even him feeling any kind of force in what I do? How can I do it in a way that makes me feel smooth and relaxed? And, I used to train with people and there were some people that would beat me back in the day that I'd feel like they didn't use it. They weren't strong or anything. And whatever I pushed, they let me, but they would find a way around it. That's the way I want to be. So the athleticism definitely helps, and being strong and athletic for sure definitely helps, but it's only going to get you so far. And the rest of it is far more important. I've seen many really fit, strong people come to jiu-jitsu and it buys them a little bit of an advantage, but then everything else from there on in doesn't make any difference. And a lot of time being really fit and strong is going to limit you more than it's going to help you because you're going to become reliant on that and never really force yourself to train as if you don't have that. So when I can, I always train as if I have no strength at all, as if I have no speed at all. And it doesn't always make for the most fun rolls to watch, but you'll definitely look at a lot of my rolls where I look like I'm moving in slow motion or very relaxed and soft. And that's because I'm trying to. And sometimes it's far more than other times. Sometimes I roll people and I might lose a couple of rounds, but I'm like, I'm going to use no strength at all. I'm going to be so soft and relaxed. Or sometimes I'll come in, I'm like, okay, I just want to focus. I'm going to put it on this dude a little bit and be strong and, with my movements and stuff. But my expectations in all areas of life are so unbelievably high to what it is, to what the normal person is, that it brings me great success, but also great frustration in most of my life as well, because I'm always frustrated at where I am. And not just where I am, I'm also frustrated in other people's ability to do stuff, because the same expectations I hold on myself, I hold on others. And this is probably one of my worst attributes is I'm judgmental.
Mm.
When I'm driving, I'm going crazy all the time because like people are just not indicating, cutting people off, almost causing accidents, not aware. And it gets me so frustrated because I'm the opposite. I'm unbelievably aware. I'm so aware that even when I'm turning, I'm trying to think, how can I turn in this situation to create as little G-force pushing me out as I possibly can? How can I make this brake so smooth? When I try and brake, a lot of time I'm trying to brake so no one can feel it in a car. And it requires a lot of effort, instead of just braking. I'm trying to brake so no one does it. Like these are the little things that I have in my head that I'm trying to perfect. And this is the same thing in jiu-jitsu, where I'm trying to work on levels that most people don't even think about. They don't even really consider, or it's not even important to them. But at the same time, I hold everyone else accountable to the same kind of expectations that I have myself, which gives me great frustration. So if I'm not the most pleasant person to game with online, if I'm gaming seriously online, you're not going to enjoy playing with me a lot of time because I'm serious. I want to do as good as I can. Plus, if you're on my team, I want you to do it as good as you can. So anytime you fuck up, I'm going to hold you accountable, but I'm going to be the first person to hold myself accountable at the same level. So if you're not interested and you don't like that kind of, you're coming into a game for fun, don't play with me. It's going to be a different experience, but I know that we're going to get better. And that's my main goal in gaming is to get better. And my main goal in training is to get better. I'm a lot more fun in training because I don't really care so much and it's not about the outcome anymore. But when it comes to like games or something or writing, when people send me their script, someone just sent me their script, I tell them straight away, if you want notes, I'm going to give you notes, but they're going to be notes that are very honest and very tough. If the script is great and it doesn't require them, then perfect. But if I see anything, I'm going to talk about everything I see, and I'm focusing on the things that we can improve. I'm not here to pat you on the back. I'm not there to be the person like, oh, you're fantastic, amazing. Most likely it's not going to be. It's very rare that you get a script that is amazing, and my standards for amazing are far higher than what most people see. And that's the problem with trying to get like, when people watch movies these days, like, is it good? Oh, it's amazing. The best movie I watched. I'm like, what the fuck were they watching? This is trash, But it's like everyone has different, different expectations and different, what did you say?
Different benchmarks, right? Of what?
Yeah. So I get that. But, I tell them and I go through like, I'll show you this, what I've written here. You can see this. And that's just the first page. You don't need to read it, but that's the first page of the script. And it's a lot because I'm holding myself to what I would hold on my own script and what I would expect, and these are all things that can be improved. So that's my biggest downfall is I probably don't compliment people as much as what they deserve to be, but it's only because I hold my standards so far greater than what most people do, and I do the same thing for other people, and it's because I usually. If I don't compliment what you're doing, it's because I believe in you so much that I think you could be doing greater than what you are. And I expect you to be doing better than what you are because I believe in you. If I don't believe in you and I don't think this person's capable of doing much better, then I'm going to congratulate you for whatever I feel like you're achieving. If I see some kid come in with potential through the roof, then I'm going to be less complimentary of what he's doing compared to if I see someone come in and they're missing 2 legs and they've got 2 reconstruction shoulders and they're 70 years old, then my expectations of them are going to be far lower. So there is that as well, but it's hard to tell when you're driving. You don't know who the person driving is, and I'll get mad. How can you not? And I'll go next to him, and I realize it's like some guy in their 80s, like trying to drive. I'm like, what can I do? What can you do?
That's happened to me so many times where I'm just like, who the fuck is this? And the kid nearly causing 4 accidents, and it's some geriatric that you're like, I probably shouldn't really be driving anymore, but you give him a lot more leeway.
There's nothing you do there. But most of the time, it's like someone like this. And I'll go past, they're just on their phone the whole time, scrolling. I'm like, you sack of shit. And I'm like, I'm going to record them, but then I'm on my phone as well. And look, I do touch my phone when I'm driving. I do. I shouldn't. I do. But I'm also a phenomenally good driver. And I think I'm one of the best drivers in the world because I used to drive as a career. And I'm so well focused. So if I am ever like on that, I'm driving and I'm like this. But it's still bad. It is. I'm not saying it's not, but I definitely, compared to somebody else that's driving like this, like, and can't even drive and like, oh shit.
But I will say I'm halfway through Elon Musk. There's a great biography about him that just came out, and the that's the overriding theme, I guess, in his career is he's done so many amazing things and he operates at such a high level and he has such an insane work ethic and he thinks he's so creative with his thinking and his big dreams. And he's constantly getting frustrated by people. And I think Steve Jobs had the same problem where when you're operating at such an elite level and you put so much into things, it's just human nature to be constantly frustrated by the people you're around because they're just not operating on that same level. And that's something that I've struggled with. Not that I'm operate on that high level, but my expectations of a lot of my friends, I know I can be that friend that tells that people get pissed off when I keep giving them, I give them tough love, but it's only because I want the best in them. And I think that a good friend tells, like, I don't get anything out of telling people things they don't want to hear. I only do it for their growth and because I care about them, but I feel like that's something I'm trying to be a little less, sometimes your buddies just want you to be your buddies. They don't always want tough love. That's something I'm working on too. But I think that's natural for anyone who has big dreams and high goals is to get a little frustrated with a lot of people.
Yeah. I think, sometimes I'll speak to people that know me and they're like, kid, don't say anything. I don't want to hear. I'm not emotionally in control right now and I can't hear anything. Some people are like that. They're like, their confidence is low, so I'm probably not the person to talk to. You know what I mean? Sometimes I know, sometimes I can, and sometimes I'll give them a good pep talk and that. And I know I try and tell the time for that. Like when I'm teaching Sheldon, sometimes I'll say something to him and I can see he's frustrated. And I'll say, look, what you're doing here is wrong. He's like, yeah, I just don't know. And I was like, and then he'll go into these tangents where he's talking about something like, this is something. I was like, this doesn't matter. I don't care. Like, I don't give a shit how you're feeling, or if you're not feeling confident or you don't feel like, because a lot of time it'll be like, I just don't feel like I'm getting better. So I don't give a shit what you feel. You have no idea what's going on. I can see it. I'm like the person that has, and I have a better perspective of where you're at than you have yourself. So it just doesn't bother me that you feel like this. Just keep doing it. Shut up. Keep going
up.
But then sometimes I'll see that the opposite, where I feel like he's doing well, but he's beating himself up a little bit. And then I'll pull him aside and I'll come and go, bro, you're doing really well. Just remember that. Like, you're really on the right page. I know you're struggling with a few things, but you're better than what you're doing today. And I know that. I just want you to know that. And then it'll bring him back up again. So a lot of coaching is just trying to find where they're at and know when you need to bring him up and bring him back down. But so many people just bring people up in a sense of just bullshit to people and just try and say what they think they want to hear so that they're valued more in their relationship, where I think it's far greater to tell people the honest truth. And it doesn't mean you're right, but at least it's your version of what is correct. I say the same thing when I'm giving notes. I'm like, look, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. Am I right or wrong? I don't know. That's up to you to decide. But I'll tell you at least what I think is right. You know what I mean?
Well, when I'm teaching jiu-jitsu, one thing that I feel like I'm constantly telling people, because I see the progress, I've been a black belt 7 years now. They've maybe only been training for 3 or 4 years and they get frustrated when I pass their guard or when I catch them in something. And it's like, brother, if you're beating me after 3 years of training, then, and you're 20 pounds lighter than me and we're close to the same age, then you probably should be, competing in the Master Worlds final, have realistic expectations, but a lot of them get really hard on themselves. And I don't know about you, Kit. I'm a little bit of different place with my jiu-jitsu. I'm a bit older than you, and I've temporarily retired from competing. And for me, I love the idea of your task-based games approach, where you're just trying to make it more playful, because I realize that the reason that I come to the mats has changed a lot over the years. And back when I was fighting, it was so I could either survive or win on the ground of an MMA fight. Whereas now it's literally just to take a break from the stress of my daily life and just have some me time and get some exercise and be around good energy and see nice people I like hanging out with. So it's so different how that you can do the same thing for many years, but your reason for doing it are going to change.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you here. So in terms of like, I teach normally on Wednesdays for my instructor, and I love teaching. I love seeing the growth, but I still teach in the sense that I try to teach concepts while I'm teaching sequences of techniques, and we'll work on different positions. So for instance, we spent a month and a half or 2 months on working from half guard to half butterfly guard, and then all the different open guard transitions from there, and different, techniques for different reactions. But I guess, can I ask you, how can I teach more concept based as opposed to still teaching by that old structure? Because I hate those people that teach, 8 sequences in a move And then you get to, when people are trying it, they get to, step number 6 and the guy puts his arm the wrong way. And then they're like, oh, it doesn't work. And it's like, I know that's a bad way of teaching. So I try and teach a bit more conceptually, but I still have that same kind of, I guess, a traditional approach to teaching.
I think what you should try and do, and this is going to be hard and you might not like to hear it, try to teach without showing any techniques. Try to challenge yourself. Let's say do this for a week. Go and try and teach without showing any technique. If you're going to go do that without showing technique, how do you think you could run a class?
I guess it would just be, would you start in situation drills and then just see reactions and try to problem solve based on why you're doing counter reactions to their reactions?
Yeah, I mean, I would create a game. I would say, okay, we're going to start in this position here, and your objective is to do A and B. His objective is to do C and D. And I'm not going to show you how to do it. I want you to try and figure it out. And I would make it a game that is at their level, that is at their, and if they're a brand new person on day one, I'll make a game that is suitable for them. And the sad truth is that every game is suitable for everybody because you're going to perfect different things as well anyway.
Exactly.
I'll create a game. And it could be so simple as to like, you've got to get past this guard. And the person is just going to try and maintain guard. This is the guard. You want to get to side control, or you want to get on their back, or you want to get to mount, for example. And I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'm not going to show you any way to do it, but I want you to try and figure that out. I want you to try and find ways. And humans are unbelievably talented in that aspect to find ways to pass someone's guard. It is real, like jiu-jitsu is a lot more simple when you remove the techniques from the equation and you just think about problem solving. And it's not simple to easy. It's just simple in its application of trying to do things. It's like the legs are there. Just throw the damn things out of the way. Try and find different ways, creative ways to get past that leg. Use trial and error to try and do that. But I'll create very small games because the problem with jiu-jitsu is it's so vast with its variables. There's so many things that can happen and it can be extremely overwhelming. So I'll create very small games that eliminate most of the variables into maybe singular variables. And let's say we start in half guard and you're not trying to escape half guard. I'm not trying to pass half guard. We just maintain that position. But all I'm trying to do is get an underhook on you and you're trying to get an underhook on me. Same side. And we just fight for that position. You do that for 10 minutes. What you're going to learn in that 10 minutes is going to be far greater than learning 10 different techniques. Because you're going to start figuring things out through trial and error, through your experience of how to do that, changing with different people and trying to get used to it, becoming instinctual in that area, that it starts doing that for yourself and find different ways to do it. And I would create more and more games. So let's say if you have like a singular, and this is what I used to do, which I don't do anymore, which is more what sound like what you were doing, where you create a sequence of a technique sequence, but you use concepts for them to understand why they're doing what they're doing.
Yes.
So what I try and do now is I try and create games to get them to perform the same sequence without them knowing they're performing that sequence.
Gotcha. And then they'll figure out the concepts as they're going.
Well, I use the concepts to answer the questions they're asking. So I know they're going to have problems. So I'll use the concepts to answer the questions in which there are, not techniques. Okay. So they're saying, look, I'm struggling with this. And, every time I try and pass here, he turtles. I'm like, well, what could you do to stop him from turtling? Conceptually, what could you do? Oh, well, I guess I could pin his shoulders to the ground. Okay. So try and do it again and try and make sure that you maintain that concept as well while you're doing it. And then they start, doing, oh, okay, I see what you're doing here. And they start finding ways of doing it. You're not telling them how, you're just telling them what they should be doing. And then they will figure out a way of how to do it. It's much harder. It requires a lot more intellect and it's a lot more chaotic. But I'm telling you, you will get far better results. People enjoy it so much more. The amount of feedback I'm getting from people that did normal classes that come and do my task-based classes, I wish I had a mic recording. Like the people come up to me. I had this girl recently. She's like a 4th class, and she did like 3 classes with the other coaches where they do a technique, drill it. And she came up to me after class. She goes, I learned so much more in your class right now than I did. I can't even remember anything I learned in the other classes. But this time, like, I got a chance to try and do things and work things out, and it's fun. And I got things to work, and it was exciting. And they start believing in themselves, and their ability to create or solve problems, it becomes so much greater than if I was to tell them what to do and then get them to try and execute it. every single way will work. I just think, and I'm very confident that this is by far the better way to do it. So I would look at your sequences that you want to teach them and break them down into little games that'll get them to develop that way. So look at thinking off the top of your head, what's one sequence that you've taught recently?
We've done a lot of butterfly guard.
Okay, and there was a sweep you did with butterfly guard?
Yeah, basically every time it's going basically side to side. So if you're trying one direction and they counter with their either their limbs or their weight, then you go in the other side. So you just basically going side to side.
Okay, yeah, good. So then what I would do is I would play a game. The first game is the guy underneath starts in butterfly guard and the other one starts on top. The person on top is to escape butterfly guard and disengage. The person underneath is just to control and maintain butterfly guard. Not trying to sweep, not trying to submit, just control it. So you spend 3 to 6 minutes in that position, and then suddenly they're going to have much better ability to control someone and be able to maintain that position. And that'll become instinctual after a while, so that they can use that and let everything else go on autopilot while they start thinking of the next step, which is trying to secure one of their posts. Okay. So then the next game is, okay, we start in this position now, and what you're going to try and do is secure one of their posts. Could be a leg, could be an arm, could be a head, whatever it is. I want you to try and secure it. And then once they're getting good at that, then I'm going to start them with that arm secured. And we start from there. And I want you to keep this arm secured. And the person on top is just to escape that arm. So they're starting to develop control in these different areas. And then eventually what's going to happen is they're going to be learning through trial and error of how to, like, when they're in that position, they know how to grab that position, how to, attack a limb or take a limb, and then how to generate leverage when they have that limb to sweep. Because the next game would be, okay, start with that limb, the post secured, and then try and generate leverage to sweep in that direction. The person on top is to try and do the opposite, either escape that limb, replace that post, or get back. So you're getting the exact same thing done, but in a way that they're problem solving themselves and figuring things out how to do it. You're just kind of pushing them in an area to discover these things. If I wanted, a kid to learn not to touch fire, then I have to put him around a fire. And, I don't put him in a fire, but put him around a fire, close to a fire. So that when he gets close and he feels that heat and he remembers that, you know what I mean? And it's kind of what I'm trying to do with jiu-jitsu is I'm creating a supply and demand chain for my information. But most people, they supply the instruction before there's even a demand for it. So it means nothing to somebody. You know what I mean? Where if I can create a demand through these games, then when I supply the concepts, then it sticks because they have experience of why this is important because they've been needing it. It's like this last little piece of the puzzle to what you're trying to do, put it on them, yeah. And then suddenly it sticks. And those light bulb moments are the ones that are great in any kind of learning where you're like, that's what I've been missing. You know what I mean? But you need to create that demand for it as well first. So I try and create a demand. So my goal is to not show them anything technically, as much as I can. And it's hard. Then you're going to be forced to really try and get them and push them into discovering it themselves. But you'll find that people are so much more creative than what we imagine. And so much, they're very good problem solvers as well. And jiu-jitsu is far more simple than what we imagine. So that would be my advice to anyone that's coaching. It's not easier. It's harder, but it'll get you far better results. It'll also make you redundant as a coach as well, to some extent. You become more like a sheep herder or something like that than an actual coach. More of an agricultural model where you create the environment for your students to thrive in, rather than what you see right now, which is more an industrial model where you're basically like telling them exactly what to do and then trying to get them to repeat that process. The hard to swallow pill in all of this is that if you have to drill a technique, it's because you don't understand that position well enough.
Right.
Anytime I've been showed something, like people show me stuff, almost always like, okay, I can see what you did there. Yeah, I'll do that. And they're like, drill it. I'm like, no, I don't need to. I'll do it in free rolling because I have such a good understanding of that position. I can see exactly what you're doing conceptually. It doesn't mean I'm going to do it the exact same way, but I could pull it off. And I'll try and do it through free rolling. That's where I'm going to learn the most. But if you learn through, drilling techniques like static drilling, you're not going to have that ability. It's going to be more likely, okay, I see what you're doing. I'm going to practice that over and over and over and over again to be able to replicate that, which unfortunately just doesn't give you as good results. And that's a huge reason why, it doesn't mean you can do it both ways, but that's the biggest difference between taking 10 to 15 years to get a black belt and taking 3 to 4 years to get a black belt. And that's the same difference, the same thing with every single industry and whatever you're learning. It's the difference between taking a long time to get good at something and a short time. A lot of people misinterpret what I'm saying when I say, get a black belt in 4 years. It's not really about the black belt. It's about progressing better and becoming and taking ownership of your own progression and learning and becoming a better problem solver. And I think it just makes everything far more enjoyable because you can teach yourself things. You don't need to, like I'm doing writing. I can figure this shit out myself as long as I put the work in and the intellect. I don't need other people. Other people can help. Don't get me wrong. You're going to have good coaches like you yourself that can help and guide me in things that might have taken a lot longer, but you want to use that as sparingly as possible. So I'm not saying don't show things because you will have to show things, but the goal is to not show things. You know what I mean? And I shouldn't say you will have to show this. The goal is to not be able to, but it's hard to get to that.
Right. No, that's fascinating and actually makes sense. When you were talking just then at the end, I was thinking about how someone said to me when I started in real estate, they said, "Oh, it's not gonna take you long to do very well because you already had a lot of success when you were trading, and you're gonna have those same principles that carry over." And to a degree, it's the same as you, that your writing your progress as a screenwriter is so much quicker because of your jiu-jitsu being quicker, but it's not because it's necessarily transferable skills. I guess there's a little bit, the discipline and things like that. The belief might be there, but it's a way of thinking outside the box. Kind of like what you said about when you had the jiu-jitsu goal, you were thinking, I want to get it in 3 years. So then with that, what do I have to do in order to get it? It's like you start with the end in mind. And I think that's just so important for anything. Yeah. I love that. I'm definitely going to try, because one of my things is, Victor's still a few years away, but I really want to start teaching him jiu-jitsu when he's a bit older. And I don't want to teach him in a way that's I don't want him to be a copy of me. I want him to be way better than me. So I love that approach. I actually just either heard something or read something where a jiu-jitsu person was saying, when you see two white belts kind of rolling and they're making all the mistakes that you and I might see, he's like, don't be quick to show them things. Just let them play, let them figure it out. And I think he was kind of saying the same thing as you're saying, just, that just let them figure it out. It's going to be more beneficial for them in the long run than you saying, oh, you could have done this and picked it and got one sweep. Well, that's not really going to affect their game. But just letting them be creative and being free, they're going to learn as they go.
Yeah, people think that, and I had a conversation with someone online the other day, and we're talking about this very same subject, and he was saying, yeah, but I feel like if I show them a technique as well, I'm making it faster for them, so I'm saving them time of having to figure this thing out. I'm like, yes, you are, but you're also robbing them of the ability to figure these things out, which is far more powerful. As we were saying, it's far more powerful to discover something than what it is to be taught something. Like, imagine you could teach me equals MC squared, right? But to come up with that formula yourself, you would have an iceberg worth of information that I'm never going to have. You can explain to me some of your theories and your concepts, but if I was to come up with those concepts myself, I would have to do far more work, but it'd be far better. So I was trying to explain to this guy, yeah, I get what you're saying. By giving him a technique, you're kind of pushing him in there, but you're also bringing him far further back, because there's so many things that he would learn that are going to benefit him everywhere else in jiu-jitsu to get to that one technique. So you're going to fast track that one technique and going to slow everything else down. And it's the same sort of thing that I explained to Sheldon, when my writing mentor, when we were working together, and he was telling me that he thinks that I should do an outline. And this is, everyone's telling me the same thing, do an outline when it comes to writing. Because when you do an outline, what you're doing is you're breaking down scene by scene, who the characters are, and it makes it buys you a lot of time. Okay, so when you come into the script, you already know where you're going, what scenes are happening here. So it's going to be much faster. But what I explained to him, and I said, I get that, but think about this. I need to learn a lot. And even if it takes me 10 to 12 more drafts to get to where I would, I'm going to learn so much through those drafts that it's going to be far more beneficial for me to do the work, the hard work, the long way, than what it is if I try and take these shortcuts. So I agree with him, what he's saying and what he should do, because he already has that knowledge. He doesn't need to learn a lot of these mistakes anymore. Okay, of course, everybody can get better, but he doesn't need to. So it's easier for him to take that and go, okay, let's just shorten this. I'm writing a script for this person. I don't want to spend 25 drafts. I can do it in 5 drafts. But what you get out of the 25 drafts is, yes, it takes longer, but you're going to gain so much more that your next script, your position of starting your next script is going to be so much greater. So the same sort of thing. If I took the shortcuts, let's say, it takes me this long to write a script, okay? Right? And I could write that, but it's going to only improve me this much. Or it takes me this much to write a script, but it's going to improve me this much. Then by the time I go to my next script, I'm already starting way greater. So same thing with a technique. I can give you the technique and put you here, right?
Right.
And it'll only take you this long to learn it. Or I would let you figure that out, that technique, and it puts you to here. So then by the time you need a new technique, you're learning that faster and faster and faster because you already have all this information that you gathered from different areas in jiu-jitsu that are relevant for learning this new thing. And that's the same thing when it comes to learning anything. It's like I'm taking years of experience in football, in inline hockey, in gaming, in acting, in jiu-jitsu, and writing for whatever else I'm learning. I know I've got so much more to take into consideration for learning the next thing, which makes it far easier. That's why it's far easier for someone that's already mastered one thing to master a second or a third and a fourth than from someone to just master something, because you've got so much knowledge and skill and experience of how you got there in the first place. There's a lot of roadblocks that are going to be in your way that you would normally quit at, that you won't, because you've already seen that roadblock and you already know, you've been in this tunnel many times. Some days I go back and I look at my scripts and I was like, oh, it sucks. I got nothing going on. This is crap. Am I even getting better? But I know I've been in that tunnel a million times and it's all an illusion. And there'll be other times where I feel like I'm the best screenplay writer in the world and I'm the best grappler in the world. And I'm like, that's another tunnel. And I'll get a rude awakening in the second when I get out of there and I get a whooping,
That's beautiful. No, but it reminds me of it's the same in business. I always tell people that ask me for advice in real estate, they say, how do I get to where you are? And it's kind of a similar concept in the sense of don't try and close something and make commission and not really got any better. If you invest in yourself and you invest in relationships and you invest in knowledge, the money's going to come. It's going to be plentiful. It might take a little bit longer having that approach, but that's the key to success. I always think one of the biggest problems with society today and in general with young people is they always want to cut corners, and it's actually doing them a huge disservice. They think they're cutting corners and it's going to get them there quicker, but it's actually taking the scenic route. Whereas what you're saying, making it a bit difficult, whether it's in writing, in jiu-jitsu, in business, and all these different things, by just doing it the right way and the harder way, it makes you better, and it's going to be way more productive in the long term.
Yeah, you're going to get that. Because, most of the jiu-jitsu is like you start off, and most people start off and they're like here, and then they start plateauing. And then the learning curve is so like not steep. Where mine is like it's hard to get off the ground, then and it just gets better and better and better and better. So you're working for the long game, which is jiu-jitsu is a marathon. It's not a short game. It's a lot. And you imagine it's going to be a journey over years, if not the rest of your life. So if you can make the first little stages a little harder, and that means the rest of it's going to be far greater, then it's going to be worth it. So for me, with like my jiu-jitsu as a white belt, I probably progressed in the first half of my white belt. I probably progressed slower than most people did, but I utilized a little bit of athleticism to hide that. But I probably progressed slower. But it just started getting faster and faster and faster and faster. Where other people come up like that and they just still, some of the guys that I first trained with, when I first met Lachlan Giles, he was a really good brown belt when I was at my first tournament as a white belt 5 months into jiu-jitsu. And we got our black belt roughly the same time. And he was like, whereas me and Craig Jones picked this up very quickly. But because we did, we kind of drifted in and out because we had a lot of other interests. And Craig was a bit more consistent with me, but he's still the same. Where Lachlan was like a tractor. He was progressing really slowly, but he just doesn't stop. He just kept going and kept going, and now he's one of the best in the world because of that. Do I think the way he teaches or the way he learns is the best way to learn? No, I don't. And I've told him that a million times. We have a very different, and we've never had a really good chat about it, but I just don't think that that's the most beneficial way. I feel like he has an unbelievable amount of knowledge and knows so much about everything that's important, but it has very little relevance to everybody else learning from it, because that's not what real learning should be. So it's not to say he doesn't hold a massive amount of value. He does, but he's got to remember that value, it doesn't translate the way you imagine it does. Otherwise, every one of these instructionals, jiu-jitsu would be so high level because you would just buy someone's instructional and just get everything and be easy. It just doesn't work like that. Even the best coaches in the world, you look at their students and how many of their students are doing really well. You've been here for 15 years, yet you've got 2 students that are doing really well and none of the rest are doing well, but you're teaching the same thing. It has more to do with the students than what it does to do with the coach, but the coaches can only create an environment for the students to learn, and you're going to have a better catalyst for producing good people. I just wish I taught in a club for years because I would have proven this years ago. I just unfortunately took a different route where I was only online. So people always say, where's your proof? I'm like, I don't have fucking my own club. But there is a guy right now that's been doing this for a while, Greg Souders. I think it's Souders. I always fucking get his name wrong. It's been doing this. He doesn't teach any technique there. It's only games. And he's on the East Coast and he has standard jiu-jitsu. And he's had great success with his students. And that's no teaching techniques at all. Only games that he runs them through. Okay. And he's getting really good success. And I guarantee the students that he's had are going to keep going because it's still very young. So there's a lot of proof of this doing really well. It's just when I started doing this years ago, I never had a school and I still don't have a school to have those kind of, those kind of experiments with. But it's happening right now in a lot of different schools, and I've got a lot of people that are, underneath me that are doing it with their schools, and they're saying that we're getting unbelievable results, and it'll prove itself long.
Okay, I mean, you're kind of proof in yourself. You got your black belt so quickly, and I've had the pleasure of rolling with you multiple times, and it's always very, very humiliating because you're so good. You're by far the best person I've trained with, and it's what's so impressive is it's not because you're training 3 times a day, 6 days a week at the expense of everything else. You're living life. You've got all these other interests, and you're still at such an elite level because of your mindset and your approach. That's what makes it so impressive for me.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't think people realize how little I train. But yeah, I probably only train 2 to 3 times a week on average. Get in there, do 4 or 5 rounds, and then get home and be out of there quick. And I love it. I think that's perfect for me. Obviously, if I train more than that, my body starts getting more sore. And depending on who I'm training with, I'm not as old as what you are, as you said earlier, even though I look like your dad. I'm 38. You're 41?
44.
40, fucking hell. So I like that combination, but like I said, I don't think you need to train that much. You get a lot of in the rest days, you get a lot of neural synapses. But I'm glad that not everyone trains the way I would. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to make a career out of what I'm doing, and I would have just been found out really quickly. And not found out, people would have just excelled much further past me if they trained the way I did while training as much as what they are now. But unfortunately, a lot of people are just wasting a lot of time in different areas that they didn't need to. And a lot of them are world champions. A lot of them are the best grapplers in the world right now. And they're still wasting 40 to 60% of their time, but they can afford to because they're training 3 times a day, and they have been since they're little kids. So it doesn't, a lot of people play the authoritarian argument like, oh, kid, you haven't won a black belt world championship. This guy has. I'm like, yeah, I only ever competed in like 2 of them. Like that guy's competed in like 27 of them and he's won 3. You know what I mean? If I kept eating it, I kept training, I would, no doubt in my mind, I would be, it could be anything I wanted if if that was my goal, and to do that. So it's a silly argument, but at the same token, I was, like, as you said, I was an example of what I'm teaching, but people can always discredit it due to other reasons. They'll say anything like, oh, it's just Kit. He's different. Kit, do that. And that's what a lot of people I used to train. Lachlan used to say the same thing, where they'd ask questions. That's just Kit. But I never loved that. It's nice. It's complimentary, but it also discredits everything that I'm doing, the processes that I'm using. And I think that if anyone uses those processes, I'm very confident they'll have the exact same results, if not better, or a little bit worse, whatever. But if I had, a big team, I would be very confident they would all be at an elite level as long as they wanted to. That's the most important thing. You can't lead. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And some coaches out there that are not good coaches got unbelievably lucky with students that happened to come to them, and suddenly they live off those things. And then there's the opposite. There's some really great coaches, but unfortunately they've just got shit students. That's mean. But they've got students that are never going to be any good because they never put any kind of thought into anything. They don't want to think. They want to come and just wrestle after work, and so that's why it's really hard to tell who's good, who's not. And winning competitions, it's an entirely different thing from jiu-jitsu. And this is the one thing I do love about Gordon, Ryan, is Gordon is the best competitor, but he's also the best artist in jiu-jitsu at the moment, where he's willing to go for long rounds. He's willing to do that and to compete against people. It's not like there's a lot of guys out there that within 5 or 10 minutes they're super athletic and they can do really well and they can win world championships, and they're not that great at jiu-jitsu. They're not as good as their competition record makes them out to be. And they're going to lose that athleticism. They're going to stop doing steroids at one point, and they're going to lose a lot of that as they get older, and they'll be a nothing and really dislike what they did. And they wasted so many years on athletic jiu-jitsu, and now they don't have that athleticism. They can't do well. And there's a lot of people in that category that just dwindle off. And I don't think Gordon's one of those at all. Gordon is open about doing steroids, but I've rolled with Gordon, and the reason why he's really fucking good has nothing to do with his muscle or size. It really doesn't. He's just unbelievably good.
What's incredible to watch him, he's so relaxed. So obviously he's a physical specimen, but he doesn't seem like, so many times doesn't seem like he's using his strength. He's not. That's the thing. Yeah.
People can think that, but anyone that really understands jiu-jitsu, and there's very few people that can watch it and really look at the way he rolls. He's so relaxed and he's soft, and I've rolled with him as well. And I can tell you, he would be as good as he is if he was back to 180 pounds. Okay, he's definitely going to find certain things a little bit harder, especially with bigger guys that could do squeezy, but I still think he would be beating everybody. There's no doubt in my mind he'd probably be beating everybody, but he's not going to be looking as good physically as what he does now. Right. So I don't blame him. Like for me, when I did weights, the weights made my jiu-jitsu worse, but it made me look better. And the only reason I ever do weights or fitness is because I want to look good. It's a completely egotistical aesthetic thing, and a lot of it's for acting and stuff because I have that look. I need to be in shape. I don't want to be the chubby guy. And if I've got a lot of muscle naturally, if I have a little bit of fat, I look really thick. So it kind of sucks for me. But there's a lot of people that, can win competitions, but they're not that great at jiu-jitsu. They're still good, don't get me wrong, but they're not great. And there's other people that win it without all that athleticism, and they're going to be good for a long time. And that's the way I've always wanted to be. I just don't compete anymore. Am I going to compete again? I probably will, but it'll be once I start getting stuff made with movies. I just understand how hard it is to break into something new. And if I start thinking about competing, I'm going to want to train and prepare for competition because I never used to do that. And that was one of my downfalls. And that's going to take a lot of time away from breaking into this industry. And I know my mind very well is like when I don't do something for a little bit, I don't feel like I need to do it ever. I could take 3 days off of jiu-jitsu and feel like I never need to train jiu-jitsu again. And I could take 3 days off riding and feel like I never need to ride again. And my mind could change within an instant of like, all right, I'm going to be a programmer now. And that's all I love doing. You know what I mean? And I know that myself. So I always make sure that I keep doing a bit, when I say a bit, I do a lot, but I just keep going every single day because I know my mind really well. I know how I can forget about it and then just decide to convince myself to do some different hobby or some different career path, which is fine. The problem was I've left so many different arts and sports and, pursued different things. And I've never really met my true potential in any one of them. Even jiu-jitsu, I'm one of the best in the world in jiu-jitsu, but I'm not even a scratch on the surface of what I really could have been if I stuck to that and I kept doing it. And this is the first thing I want to do with filmmaking, to show people and myself how much potential this process really has and how much I have as an individual and how much I can really do, where I've never done that with anything else. I've always gotten to a good level, left. But this one I really want to show whatever it is.
No, Kit, that's so true. Just even the few days we spent together, seeing your dedication, it really reminded me of that Stephen Pressfield's War of Art, that just all in. For me, as an outsider, I don't know anything about the industry except from what you told me, but it's just, for me, it's a matter of when, not if. It's just a matter of when, like you're doing everything right. And it's just a matter of when you get that lucky break. So it's really cool to see. And I love the passion. And I remember when I didn't really know how into it you were. And then we started talking and you were like, man, you're telling me about your mentor, how, successful Sheldon is and how you're just all in. I was like, that's really cool. And the good thing about this, as opposed to all your former lives in different sports, is you don't have the body clock of, your body getting too old to do it. So you can do this for a long time and you can just keep getting better. And with your mindset, like I have the confidence, just like Steve Jobs said in one of his commencements at university, he said, in life, you have to have the confidence that the dots will connect in the future. You don't know when, you don't know how, but you know they're going to connect. And I feel like that I have that same approach in business. I've gone through some tough times with some bad partnerships, but I know it's a matter of when, not if. Like I know I'm going to do very well because we share that same mindset. So it's really cool, brother. I know there's great things to come, and bro, it's been such a treat chatting to you. I'm a huge fan, and as well as your friend Kit. So really, really cool to see what you're doing and the future.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. This is a great chat, man. Awesome. Always good to see you and catch up, bro.
Likewise, brother.